Anthony Zuiker created CSI, one of the most popular TV crime franchises ever. And then one day, he had a real-life mystery to solve, the suicide of his estranged father.
He tells us how he came to grips with that tragedy in a new memoir, Mr. CSI, How a Vegas Dreamer Made a Killing in Hollywood, one body at a time. Anthony Zuiker, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
The book begins with your father's death. When you got that call, could you process it at that time?
No, I couldn't. I was actually working on CSI New York at the time and received a phone call from Daniel Holstein, who's the real-life Gil Grissom at CSI in Las Vegas. And he said, "Do you know Eddie Zuiker?" And I was like, yeah. And he said, "Well, hold on." He gave me the phone to somebody else who called me and said he lost his life. So it's ironic because I created CSI, and only to have the crime scene happen to myself was very ironic.
What was your relationship like with... I mean, he was estranged, obviously.
Yeah, it was, my mother divorced at 6 months old. I knew of him here and there through high school, and then we lost each other for 10 years. And then suddenly, after CSI hit, I got the bad news.
You got the bad news. And this had really come, I mean, the day after, you had some really great news, too, in your life. Talk about the ups and downs of the emotions there. This really caused you to re-examine your life, though, and your own relationships. This can often happen with people in these situations. When you started to do that thinking, you decided to write this book. Anything surprise you as you're going through this sort of internal catalog?
Well, the funny thing about, I think, my life in general is, the CSI success has been so amazing for so many people and for myself. And when I went back to re-examine the book and look at my life, there was so much struggle involved in the success of my life and CSI. So I wanted to write the book to make sure that if you're a fan of CSI, that there's a real person behind it that has real struggle. But there's also a lot of inspiration to that success story also. When
you're looking at all those struggles, because as you're going through them, you recognize them, but obviously, as you mentioned, when you lay them all out there, it's a totally different perspective. How did that change the way you live your life now? Because it had a pretty profound impact on you. It
did. When you're in television, you wrote one script in your life, CSI, and it becomes the biggest show on the planet.
Because it was different.
Yeah, it's overwhelming to even process. That's, the show can be in every country but 6 and be on the air for 30 years with all 3 shows. But you realize when you go through the fire and go through success that the true success in my life is being a father to my children. And it's not until you really go through the whole wave of what happened to us with CSI, you realize that, children are the most important.
In the book, you also talk about the moment you were able to retire your mother from her job.
Yes.
That must have been nice.
I think everybody has a dream to retire their parents. I mean, I did since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So, one day I walked into a casino where she was working. I put a check on the blackjack table. She worked as a pit boss, and she was like, "What's this?" And I said, "It's over, Mom. It's over." And I picked her up, and I walked her out. She clocked out, and people were playing slot machines and crying, going, "Congratulations."
Oh, that is so
and I walked my mother out of the hotel, and she hasn't worked since, so that was a great success story.
Wow.
It's a fantastic story.
Thank you.
You worked a lot around a lot of odd jobs around Las Vegas. People don't always expect that.
Yes, I was a tram operator at the Mirage Hotel for $8 an hour.
Was that the best one or the most obscure?
Yeah, that was. It was such a menial job, but I loved it. I was picking up cigarette butts, and I was working for $8 an hour, and I was going to meet Mr. Wynn and be a big success, and ended up in Hollywood. It worked out pretty good, though.
It's a lesson that you were patient, though. You were patient. You did those jobs, and you put in your time, and you waited for the opportunity.
Well, I think there's a lot of talented people in America that have great ideas. And if this book does anything right, it lets you give the permission that if you have a great idea in this country, great success can happen.
Which is a great lesson, too, for your kids. Just bring it back to what you found, which I think so many people can relate to, too, in the book. That really is what matters, especially these days.
Yes. It's all about family.
Anthony Zuiker, thank you very much.